For many Nevadans, tax season is also financial planning season. We're discussing your options. That's today on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstat, Cashman Equipment, and additional supporting sponsors.
For the staggering number of Nevadans living paycheck to paycheck, tax season can seem overwhelming. Thousands of local Nevadans qualify for free filing services, but many don't know how to access them. We'll discuss some of the options you may be eligible for and get some sound tax advice from the experts. Plus, tax returns can be the biggest cash influx many families experience all year. We'll explore what resources are available to help families plan. To discuss free filing, financial planning options, and related policy, we are joined by Kathleen Matson, VITA Site Coordinator for HopeLink of Southern Nevada, Pat Smith, Director of the Nevada Free Taxes Coalition, Brian Claggett, Regional Bank District Manager for Wells Fargo, and Emily Stevens, Community Development Executive for SCE Federal Credit Union. Well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. This is going to be a really, really great discussion. And I just wanted to tie in a little bit from that intro there with a little bit more data here. 44% of Americans don't have emergency savings. 38% of households carry long-term credit card debt. 33% of Americans have zero saved for retirement. These are staggering and very scary issues. Emily, maybe I'll start with you. I'm wondering, are we seeing the same types of gaps here in Nevada? Is there any difference?
Absolutely. In fact, I think we see it more in Southern Nevada. There seems to be a lack of education, lack of resources out there, and so folks are definitely living paycheck to paycheck. We go in and we do financial workshops with large organizations, large employment groups and nonprofits and so on, and people will come up to me afterwards and talk to me about their 401k. They're not contributing to it because they don't even understand it. They don't understand what would happen if they don't contribute to it and those types of things. So,
and is that the major issue, the clients that you're working with then? Is it just a lack of understanding?
It seems to be. Many are living, like you said, paycheck to paycheck, and as a result, there is no savings, so there's no emergency fund, and then they don't know who to turn to when those emergencies take place. And then on top of that, because there's no proper management of their personal finances, they're really just in over their heads in debt, and they don't know what to do.
Brian, same question on the banking side here. You know, a bank like Wells Fargo, the average client that you have as a checking account, what are some of the challenges that you see they're dealing with here?
Absolutely, and I think I'd agree with what Emily said. You know, the biggest challenge is they can get overwhelmed and then not know the tools and resources that banks or financial institutions have to help them. And so it can become overwhelming and it feels like you're in it by yourself and you're really not. I think in the Vegas Valley, it's about 40% of our population is either underbanked or not banking. And that's something I think we do need to tackle, where we work together with our community to find, why is that population not leveraging the tools and resources out there, and how do we come to the table together to help that? Because I think that would help solve some of those statistics you brought up, where we can help get people on the right track with the plan that they're looking for, so that we can be successful together. Absolutely.
Now, Emily, you were originally on a payday show that we had here on Nevada Week, and one of the things that we talked about is access to payday loans is not just low and moderate income populations, middle income populations, and even high income populations are accessing short-term lending. Is this an indicator of a much bigger problem? We're not just talking about low and moderate income here, we're talking about our entire population.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is that folks are starting to even turn to payday lending as a resource for bills that they would normally pay with cash, because they're running out of funds at the end of the month. A lot of times that's because they simply aren't budgeting properly, or because their debt to income is way too high. But again, it's very, very difficult for folks to understand that that's the issue when they've never really been taught or educated on how to do a proper budget or how important it is to save and what that looks like. And so these are some of the resources that I know a lot of us are trying to get out there.
And Pat, so we're talking about financial literacy here on a much larger scale. Maybe let's talk more specifically about the tax literacy here. Also, tax season is coming up. Do you notice in the work you're doing that there's also an issue of just not understanding how tax preparation is working as well?
Certainly, and that's why one of the things that we make it a point to do is literally educate them. We're going to provide them with the free tax preparation service, but we're also going to take them through their tax return and explain how these numbers are arrived at and how they impact their lives. There is the retirement credit. And so we can tell them that because of the fact that you're participating in your 401k, hey, you got this $200 credit here that's helping to lower your tax liability. That is helping them to understand that I'm not leaving money on the table. I'm maximizing this opportunity. And so definitely being able to provide them with the education, that is critical. Doing the taxes is one thing, but the education piece of it is so much more valuable to them because it empowers them to be able to go out.
Let's talk collectively then about those opportunities here. The organization you work for is part of a much larger VITA network. For one thing, what opportunities are available?
Well, we're the Nevada Free Taxes Coalition, and we administer the VITA program here in Nevada. So last year we had 33 sites in Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson. We traveled to Pahrump. We've got a couple of roving teams that actually go to senior centers and to libraries. And that's what we're doing is we're going out there. We're, number one, letting people know that the service is there, because it's always very shocking to me that so many people don't realize that we're available to do their taxes. If your income's $59,000 or less, then you don't have to pay to get your taxes done. That's keeping $200 or $300 in your pocket. And that's just the basic part. Making sure that they're getting all the tax credits that that they're entitled to is a huge part of it. And then the education piece also, so that they understand their taxes. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, when you go to a paid preparer, what they're going to do is they're going to give you a bottom line. Here's your refund. And they're not saying, well, okay, it would have been $300 or $400 more if we hadn't charged you. Those are the type of things that they need to understand.
And how many are you serving with these services right now? If we just talk maybe just about Southern Nevada.
Last year, we prepared 8,500 returns.
8,500 returns.
Yeah, we bought back about $10 million in federal refunds. We're quite proud of that.
And you said that the tolerance here is $59,000, which I believe is just right above the median household income. So there's a large population of individuals and families that can apply for these types of funds.
That would qualify, yes.
So what are we missing? Why are so many then not accessing these types of opportunities?
It's the education. We're constantly getting out there and trying to make sure that everyone knows about the service. That I find one of the biggest things that we have going for us is word of mouth. Last year we had 8,500 people that we did their taxes, and we tell everyone, we know you have people who qualify for this service. Don't let them go to the paid preparers. Make sure that they know about this. We're constantly going to all types of outreach, community fairs, things like that, and telling people and educating them, letting them know that, when tax time gets here, then you know where to go.
So Kathleen, your boots on the ground here. You are one of the volunteers at one of these VITA sites at HopeLink. Right. Can you give us, just kind of walk us through exactly what services are you providing to a client if I were to come in?
Well, like Pat said, if you have $59,000 or less, and that includes self-employment, we have a lot of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers. We do their returns. You can make an appointment with us, or you can walk in. We have appointment centers. We have walk-in centers. And you have to have all your income documents, ID, and Social Security cards. And then we'll prepare your return absolutely for free. And one thing that I tell all of our clients as we try to get them to go talk to their friends and neighbors is we will make sure that you get the best refund that you're legally entitled to. And a lot of paid preparers, if you want more of a refund, they'll charge by the page.
Yes.
$100 a page, and that's cost prohibitive for a lot of these people. So I'm not begrudging anyone to go out and have a business and make money, but I think if you're in the working poor, you should take advantage of every resource available. And HopeLink, where we do our tax work, is a nonprofit that does help the working poor. And we actually talk to them while they're there. Some of them we could tell. We just had a couple last week that were living in their car. And so I gave them information about HopeLink. You need to come back and talk to these people, and they will sit down with you. And even we will tell you how much you're paying if you go to payday loan or if you go to a check cashing service because you don't want to have a bank account.
Yeah.
It's just it's not good for them.
So we're talking about tax preparation, but it sounds like what you're talking about here is that one of the goals then is not just on preparing taxes for that year. You're trying to provide, as Pat has talked about a lot, the education so that individuals can do their taxes on their own or at least have a lot more knowledge. Is that right?
What we want them to do is know where their money is going and know why they're getting this refund, what it is that made them get that refund. And then we talk to them. One of the things that Pat has going this year is trying to get them to do, because we can split your refund many ways. You can buy savings bonds, you can put part of it into savings and part of it into checking. We can split it, I think, at least 3 times.
That's correct.
And so I talked to them, how about splitting this? I had a young lady, single mother with 3 children, had a refund of almost $9,000. By the time she was done, she bought a $500 bond for each of those kids. And I said, that's great, you can give it to them as a graduation present. They were young children. So we do talk to them. Do you need all of this right now? Can you put some of it into a savings or buy some savings bonds that you can have for later on?
Yep. So Pat, let's talk more just about the resources then for an individual that wants to come and get these resources at all these nonprofits and partners that you're mentioning. Where's the one resource they should go to?
They should go to our website, which is nvfreetaxes.org. There they're going to be able to find a site listing. On the site listing, it tells you if it's a walk-in, whether you can just walk in. If you need to make an appointment, it's going to tell you, okay, this is where you call. It tells you the dates, times that the volunteers are there. It's important for us to mention that these volunteers are IRS certified, and so they know what they're doing. They have no incentive whatsoever to do anything but to help. And so instead of going to a creative tax preparer, because unfortunately we still see folks that come in and will do their taxes and they'll say, well, I thought I was going to get more, I'm going to shop. And I always tell them, well, you know what, 1 + 1 will always equal 2. And if someone's telling you it's 3, you probably should be wary of that person.
Pat, on the volunteer side then, do you have enough volunteers? Or if you want to volunteer for something like this, do you need to be a CPA or can anybody get the training here?
Anybody can get the training, and we're always looking for volunteers.
How do we do that?
The need is so great. Again, go to our website. We have information on if you want to volunteer.
Another organization always looking for volunteers is AARP.
The Tax Aid program is one of the largest free tax service programs in the nation, and we work in conjunction with the IRS.
Their National Tax Aid program helps over 12,000 Nevadans a year.
We do taxes for people for free, for anyone. You don't have to be an AARP member. The total refund for last year was $10 million, so that's $10 million that came back to the state of Nevada.
Here in Nevada, there are over 32 tax sites. With so many clients, they are always looking for new volunteers.
We have several job roles that people can play. So if you maybe don't want to do taxes, but you would like to volunteer, we have client facilitators.
Connie says they are also in need of trainers, technology coordinators, and administrators.
You don't have to be a CPA, you don't have to be an accountant. Our counselors are IRS certified at the advanced level. And our goal is to make sure that we find every benefit that a taxpayer is eligible for.
While community members of any age can take part in this service, AARP offers additional services for our local seniors.
Seniors, when they retire, they're worried that they're going to owe taxes. So we do some counseling for them when they come in.
Kathleen, I want to talk really quickly about some of the scams. This is one of the big issues I know that has come up a lot, especially with some more vulnerable populations that we're dealing with, is there are a lot of tax scams and things like that. Can you give us some advice on what we should be really wary of if we have someone approach us about taxes?
Well, if anyone says to you, I can get you a bigger refund than anybody else, there's something wrong with that. Or I've had people, like Pat said, do the return, they leave with it, they don't want to file it right then, and then they'll come back and say, so if they said I could get $1,000 more, and I'll just tell them not unless they're going to add something that you don't have, because you can't, it is what it is. And our people are exceptionally well trained. We have wonderful volunteers that are really good. And I would say they're far better trained than a lot of these paid preparers are. And like I said, we are under no time constraint. We aren't paying by the hour, and we're not paying anyone at all. So we can take as long as it takes to make sure we get your return right. And you know, if you get caught in one of these scams, like claiming a child that's not yours, that's a big one, because there are many credits associated with children. The IRS is checking that. They are checking it very thoroughly because it's a huge area of fraud. And if you get caught, then you're barred from claiming that for up to 3 years. And that can really hurt you to get something that you might have been legally entitled to that now you've lost.
This could be a simple mistake.
Yep. I mean, if it's a mistake, it can be fixed. But if you did it because you wanted more money, then and another big area where there are a lot of credits is education. If you're in college, then there are some credits available to you. But that's another area where there was a lot of abuse of people claiming they were going to school when they weren't. So now that's under a lot of scrutiny, and refunds are being delayed because they're checking all of that. So it's important to be honest.
And we've already talked about refunds. Let's talk about that more specifically here. One statistic I found very fascinating is a Business Insider poll found that the majority of high-income individuals during tax season, that is when they're also doing most of their financial planning. And Pat, I'm wondering, on the low and moderate income side here, does it make sense to do exactly the same thing, where you've got your taxes, you've got your refund, this is the time to get more involved in financial planning?
Definitely. This is when we're talking to them, for instance, if you end up with a large refund, one of the things we tell them is if this refund is because that you had too much withheld, then you need to go to your employer and you need to change your withholdings, because what you're doing is you're giving the government an interest-free loan for a year. And you could be using that money every day. It's also a time, if you're owing a lot, you're not having enough withheld, and that's why you're ending up owing all of this money. You need to go to your employer, and let's look at your amount. Maybe you need to increase it by a dollar amount, $25 per paycheck.
So Pat, what kind of services then on the VITA side are you providing to actually kind of give that head start, that first step in financial planning?
It's in the education. When we're doing the tax preparation, that's what we're doing. We're talking them through their numbers so that they understand their numbers. Because for most folks, whenever I do taxes and I flip the tax return around and I say, okay, this is the information from your wages. This is your adjusted gross income. And we take them through each number so they understand what it is, so that later, when they're thinking about, okay, you know what, she told me that I probably could lower my withholdings and I would have more money during the year, then they can go to HR and say, you know what, I need to make this change because it's going to impact me day to day instead of getting this large lump sum. And we know when we get that large lump sum, we think about all those things that we planned on doing, you know, that big screen TV that we just had to have, you know, instead of making sure that we're putting that, you know, to use.
So Pat, I want to stress the later that you said there, and let's talk about the bankers that we have around the table here too. We do have Wells Fargo represented in SCE Federal Credit Union, and I'm wondering that later aspect of what we're talking about here. Brian, let's start with you. What resources does a regular bank like Wells Fargo offer to kind of help a client with financial planning?
And I think about all banks, I think our best resources are our people we have. And it's our population, our community sitting down at a table and a desk across from somebody who has that knowledge and is able to educate on those topics. And you think about, Pat, you brought up a good point, they come into this sum of money and there's a lot they have on their mind of what they want to do. And the advantage of having a conversation with somebody is just being able to lay that out and creating a plan. And so a plan on what are the most important things that will help you now, but will help you in the future, because we do need to look at that. And that's the advantage, is the people. It's that conversation. Because there's so many tools and resources online. I know banks provide so much. We have our hands-on banking website that provides education, and it's great. You can go out there and you can do all that, but sometimes too, you still have questions. And so that person-to-person interaction, you both talked about that brilliantly with the education you can provide. That's what people do at banks. That's what our team members do, is really sit down and create that individual plan that you want to be successful with, and we're in it with you. So we're there every step of the way. As things change, we're there to help make adjustments, make recommendations, provide options that maybe you don't know are out there that we do, just because obviously we work in that industry. And I think that's probably the resource that I would hope that we could continue to get out there more. It's just our people and that genuine conversation with them.
And to have those types of connections, to have the one-on-one guidance that you're talking about, the consultations here, just having a checking account in a bank, is that all you need?
You don't even have to have that. I mean, obviously we would love you to have that, but even if you don't bank right now and we'll sit down and have a conversation on that. There's no charge, there's no obligation or anything like that. So you walk in and say, hey, I got questions that I need to know. We will absolutely sit down with you and go through anything you'd like.
That's what I think is really important, to get out to people.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to talk to them about too when we're doing taxes. Don't be afraid to do something else with your life, to make some changes. Go talk to a bank. Go talk to a credit union. Make some changes. And on a withholding, we'll print them out a withholding statement, a W-4. Or a lot of people say, here, fill this out, take it to HR. Change your withholding to make your taxes right. The IRS is a poor savings account, really.
Well, let's talk on the credit union side then, Emily. What kind of resources is a credit union offering here?
So we also provide one-on-one counseling, and we promote it as best as we can in the community. There's no cost to it. You don't have to be a member to get that counseling. But in the time that our folks will sit down with an individual or with a family or a couple, we'll talk about what their goals are. Most people, even if they're in trouble, they have the best intention. Maybe they do want to go buy that big TV or whatever it is when they get that tax return. But a lot of them do have good intentions. They want to get out of debt. They want to better manage their money. They want to do these things, but they're just not quite sure how to go about it. And so this is a really good opportunity when they get that tax refund to start having that conversation and to have it with somebody who can give them the right guidance and can educate them on, okay, these are your goals. Let's look at your budget. Let's kind of break it down and let's kind of bring it back to your goals, because it's very possible that we could take some of this refund and pay off some debt with it. We could use some of this and put it in an emergency fund for you, kind of give you that feeling of security so that you're not so stressed on this paycheck to paycheck type situation that we're seeing so much.
Right, which goes right back to the gaps we were talking about at the beginning of the show. We've got some debt gaps and some retirement gaps and some emergency savings gaps. I want to talk more about
one of the things that with NFTC, that one of our initiatives is tax time savings. And when I introduced this to the volunteers, I told them, I said, these people are telling you things that they don't tell their best friends. They tell us how they make their money, how they spend their money. So we're already halfway there in the financial discussion with them. So being able to encourage them to be able to save this money, to be able to say, you know, you're getting a nice refund. Let's take some of this and put it to the side for emergencies, because there are so many people that don't have $400 for an emergency fund. Let's create that emergency fund for you now.
Yeah, Pat, that's a great point. And Brian, just talking more specifically about the reticence to maybe talk about money, right? Something that we typically don't do. So, you know, we potentially have gaps within our family not talking about money. When you're talking to a bank, what are the right questions if you want to kind of see where you're at? What do you recommend?
And you said it's a faux pas. I talking to parents and generations. You don't talk about money and paychecks, and so I think it can be an intimidating conversation or an uncomfortable one. But questions I think about. When you go in, I think it's be open and honest with what your goals are and what you're looking to do, the needs and wants. And I think just asking some simple questions on, what options do I have out there? What do you think? What resources are there? And I think just asking those basic questions will absolutely create this great conversation that are going to lead to that planning, that are going to lead to, do we need to look at more of a savings for you right now for that emergency fund? Do we want to pay down some debt to create some disposable income for you so we can help you budget better? And I think that's okay. And you said, Emily, that everyone has the best intention. They want to, but they all have their constraints too. And I think being open with those constraints allows that conversation to be, okay, so if we know this is in place, what can we do within those constraints? And I think that's a great question to ask, is when you're open and honest and you know those constraints, to say, so what are my options within these constraints? Because sometimes we can't change those constraints. We absolutely can't. But there are tools and resources that we can help you to eventually move past that constraint or work around it to help in some other areas. And so just those basic questions.
Emily, on the credit union side here, I'm wondering, let's say you go to a credit union and you want to start financial planning. Maybe you've never thought about how to even start. Advice on how do you start something like that? What's the first step?
First step is to walk through the door and and ask for me. We'll connect you with the right staff members, and those folks will sit down and kind of go through the process. And then the questions that, if somebody is saying to you, you're paying extremely high interest on this loan and this credit card, and maybe you should think about consolidating, or maybe you should think about different things depending on their situation. Questions for these folks, they might say, well, what if I don't have good credit? Are there options to help me with that? When you talk about constraints, we need to start discussing why you have those constraints, and are there resources that bank or that credit union can offer them to help with those. For instance, if a person says to us, our credit is really bad, so we're not sure how to even begin to make it better without going to a third party that's going to charge them a bunch of money to help. We have a program called a credit builder where we'll put money in a savings account with their name on it, and they'll pay towards that at 5.5%. They could have the worst credit in the world, but it will always be 5.5%. They'll pay that off. Now they have money in savings. Right. Hopefully they'll keep it there. And they've done something to help their credit, because we're going to obviously send that over to the credit bureau every month. So there are different products and resources that people are not aware of. So when those constraints come up, it's really good to start asking questions. Well, do you guys have anything that could help me with that?
Yeah. And final question, we're out of time, but to access those resources at the credit union itself, you just go to your website also, or you, as you say, just walk in the door and ask?
Walk in the door. Yeah, you can definitely go on the website, call our 1-800 number, tell them how you heard about us, and they'll point you in the right direction. We have 4 locations in the Valley on all 4 sides, so look us up and we'll do our best to help you out.
Wonderful. And it sounds like it's the same on the Vita side and also on the
Yeah, walking in the door is sometimes the hardest part.
Sometimes the hardest part, exactly. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about anything that we've discussed today, please visit our website at vegaspbs.org/Nevada-Week. You can also always find us on social media at Nevada Week. Thank you so much.